Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizons and watched the stars through the main window, his coffee growing cold in his hands as he studied the data flowing across the screens around him, each display showing information about the strange new system they had entered 3 days ago near Kepler 442, a place where no human had ever been before, but where their sensors detected signs of complex life forms that could change everything they knew about biology and evolution in the galaxy, making this mission one of the most important scientific expeditions in human history, as they slowly moved through space at a careful speed to avoid disturbing whatever they might find here. Dr. Lisa Hayes worked at her station behind him, her fingers dancing over the controls as she analyzed samples they had collected from the outer planets, her excitement growing with each new discovery because the microorganisms they found were unlike anything in Earth databases, showing signs of artificial enhancement that suggested intelligent design rather than natural evolution, which meant they were not alone in this system, and that someone or something had been changing life here for a very long time, perhaps thousands of years, making her wonder what kind of beings could master biology so completely that they could redesign living things at the cellular level. The ship moved quietly through space with its crew of 42 scientists, engineers, and support staff, all volunteers who had signed up for this long journey knowing they might not return home for several years, but driven by curiosity and the human need to explore and understand the universe around them, their vessel equipped with the most advanced research equipment Earth could build, including laboratories that could analyze anything from microscopic life to planetary atmospheres, computers that could process vast amounts of data in seconds, and communication systems that could send messages back to Earth across the incredible distances of space. Commander Sam Carter monitored the tactical systems from his position near the captain, his job normally boring during peaceful research missions like this one, but something about this system made him nervous because their long-range sensors kept detecting movement in the outer regions, ships or objects that appeared and disappeared before they could get clear readings, making him wonder if they were being watched by whoever lived here, and whether those watchers might not appreciate human visitors poking around in their territory without permission or invitation. Young engineer Pete Williams crawled through the maintenance tunnels, checking systems and making repairs, his hands dirty with grease and his clothes wrinkled from long hours spent keeping the ship running smoothly, but his mind sharp and focused on the technical challenges of keeping human technology working properly. So far from home, where replacement parts were impossible to find and every component had to be maintained with careful precision, because a single failure could strand them here forever or worse, leave them helpless if they encountered trouble in this unknown region of space. The trouble came without warning on their 4th day in the system, when massive ships appeared out of nowhere around them, vessels so large they blocked out the stars and so advanced that human sensors could barely track their movements as they surrounded the New Horizons with obvious hostile intent, their hulls covered in weapons that could destroy the human ship with a single blast, while their design showed a level of technology that made Earth engineering look primitive by comparison, sleek and deadly like predators built for hunting and killing rather than exploration or research. Jake Morrison tried to establish communication with the alien ships, broadcasting messages in every language and mathematical sequence humans knew, offering friendship and peaceful contact while explaining that they were scientists studying life in the system, not military forces or colonists seeking to claim territory, but the aliens responded with silence that felt threatening rather than curious, as if they were studying the humans, the way scientists might examine insects before deciding whether to preserve or destroy them for their research. The alien ships moved closer with movements that showed perfect coordination and tactical skill, their formations designed to prevent any escape while maintaining overwhelming firepower advantage. And Jake realized these beings were not just advanced but experienced warriors who had done this many times before, surrounding and capturing or destroying other ships that wandered into their space, making him wonder how many other species had died here, without anyone ever knowing what happened to them or why they never returned home. Dr. Hayes managed to activate the emergency beacon just as the first alien boarding pods attached to their hull with sounds like thunder echoing through the ship, followed by cutting tools that sliced through human armor like paper, allowing tall armored figures to pour into the corridors with weapons that fired energy bolts capable of cutting through metal and flesh with equal ease, their faces hidden behind masks that gave them an insect-like appearance, cold and merciless as they began systematically hunting down every human aboard the ship. The crew fought back with everything they had, using emergency weapons and improvised defenses. But their small arms were useless against alien armor, and their tactics meant nothing against beings who moved with perfect coordination and seemed to know exactly where every human was hiding, as if they had fought species like humans many times before and understood all the ways weaker beings might try to resist or escape, making the battle more like an extermination than a fight. Commander Carter died defending the bridge, his weapon firing until the very end as alien soldiers cut him down without mercy or hesitation, treating his courage and determination as nothing more than the death throes of an inferior species that deserved destruction. While Dr. Hayes and Engineer Williams followed Captain Morrison toward the emergency escape pods, running through corridors filled with smoke and the screams of their friends and colleagues, who were being killed by aliens who showed no interest in prisoners or mercy. They reached the shuttle bay as explosions rocked the ship around them, the New Horizons dying as alien weapons tore through her systems and structure. But Jake managed to launch one small escape pod with the 3 survivors inside, just as the research vessel exploded behind them, taking with her 49 good people who had volunteered for this mission, believing they were advancing human knowledge and making the galaxy a better place through science and discovery, never imagining they would die at the hands of beings who saw them as nothing more than pests to be eliminated. The escape pod limped toward human space carrying 3 traumatized survivors and recordings of humanity's first contact with an alien species, footage that showed the complete destruction of a peaceful research mission and the cold-blooded murder of unarmed scientists, evidence that would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy and the nature of the beings they might encounter among the stars, setting in motion events that would transform peaceful humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room deep beneath Earth Defense Command, her face hard as stone while she watched the footage from the New Horizons for the 15th time, seeing again the moment when alien soldiers executed wounded humans who had surrendered, their weapons cutting down doctors and engineers who posed no threat to anyone, beings who had spent their lives trying to understand the universe and help others, now dead because they had the misfortune to encounter a species that viewed mercy as weakness and peace as an invitation to slaughter. The 3 survivors sat at the long table surrounded by military officers and government officials, their hands shaking as they answered questions about the attack. Jake Morrison still wearing the torn uniform he had escaped in, Lisa Hayes clutching a data pad containing the only scientific records saved from their destroyed ship, Pete Williams staring at his hands while he described the sounds of his friends dying in the corridors around him. All of them changed forever by what they had witnessed in the darkness between the stars. General Robert Chen paced behind the table like a caged animal, his mind already working on the problem of how to respond to this unprovoked act of war, because that was what it had been despite the aliens probably thinking of it as pest control. The systematic murder of 49 humans whose only crime was curiosity about the galaxy they lived in. An attack that demanded response, not just for justice but to prevent these beings from deciding that all humans were equally worthless and disposable. The footage showed alien technology that surpassed human engineering in every way, ships that could appear and disappear at will, weapons that cut through the best human armor like tissue paper, beings who moved with coordination that suggested either genetic enhancement or cybernetic implants, making them faster and stronger than any human could ever be, while their tactics revealed centuries or millennia of experience in warfare against species that had never been able to match their capabilities. But Admiral Sullivan had spent 30 years studying warfare, and she knew that superior technology did not always guarantee victory, especially when facing an enemy that could adapt and learn faster than expected. And humans had advantages these aliens probably did not understand, including the ability to innovate under pressure, work together despite differences, and fight with desperate creativity when their survival was threatened, traits that had helped humanity survive ice ages, plagues, and wars throughout their history. Colonel Morrison accepted his promotion without celebration, knowing that his new rank came with the responsibility to lead other humans into battle against the beings who had murdered his crew, his quiet voice describing alien weaknesses he had observed during the attack, including their reliance on standard formations and predictable tactics, as if they had never faced an enemy capable of surprising them or adapting to their methods, making them dangerous but potentially vulnerable to unconventional approaches. Dr. Hayes became the head of a new xenotechnology, research division with unlimited funding and authority to study the alien equipment recovered from the New Horizons wreckage. Her scientific mind now focused on understanding how their weapons and defenses worked, so humans could build countermeasures or even better versions. Because the key to defeating a superior enemy was often learning their secrets and turning their own advantages against them. Engineer Williams found himself leading a team of the brightest technical minds on Earth, all of them working day and night to reverse engineer alien technology while developing new human weapons and defenses. His grief over the loss of his friends driving him to work 18-hour days as he slowly began to understand how alien systems functioned and where they might be vulnerable to human ingenuity and determination. The first human response came 6 weeks after the attack, when the stealth frigate Retribution entered the Kepler 442 system, using experimental cloaking technology based on alien principles but improved with human engineering. Her crew trained in tactics that no alien species had ever encountered because they were based on human military history rather than the honor-based warfare that seemed to dominate galactic civilization. Captain Morrison commanded the Retribution with a crew of volunteers who understood they might not return from their mission, but who were willing to risk everything for the chance to strike back at the beings who had started this war. Their ship equipped with weapons that combined human and alien technology in ways that created capabilities neither species had achieved alone, making them more dangerous than the aliens expected. The reconnaissance mission discovered alien patrol fleets moving through space with arrogant confidence, their formations perfect and their movements predictable, as if they had never needed to worry about ambush or surprise attack, while their communications revealed a species that viewed warfare as a ritual with established rules, rather than a desperate struggle for survival, giving humans opportunities that experienced warriors would never have provided. Dr. Hayes made breakthrough discoveries about alien psychology and culture through intercepted communications, learning that they called themselves the Vilthuran Empire and considered themselves the rightful rulers of this entire region of space, having exterminated dozens of younger species over the millennia because they viewed expansion by inferior beings as an insult to their divine authority, making the attack on humans just another routine cleaning operation in their endless campaign to maintain galactic purity. The first human attack came without warning during a routine Veltheran patrol, when the Retribution appeared out of nowhere behind an alien squadron and destroyed 3 ships before disappearing again. Using hit-and-run tactics that violated every principle of honorable warfare the aliens understood, leaving survivors to report that humans possessed technology and methods that made them unpredictable and dangerous to engineer. Williams achieved the impossible by not only copying alien weapons but improving them through human engineering principles, creating energy cannons that fired faster and hit harder than the original designs, shield generators that could absorb more damage while using less power, and propulsion systems that gave human ships speed and maneuverability that surprised alien forces who thought they understood human limitations. War Prime. Zethkar received reports of human attacks with growing concern, because his species had ruled through technological superiority for so long that they had forgotten how to fight against enemies who could match or exceed their capabilities, while human tactics seemed designed by minds that understood warfare as chaos rather than ritual, making every encounter unpredictable and dangerous for Veltheran forces. Admiral Sullivan authorized the construction of a new class of warships designed specifically to fight Veltherans, incorporating every lesson learned from the destruction of the New Horizons and the successful raids by the Retribution. Vessels that could match alien firepower while exceeding their speed and maneuverability, crewed by humans who understood that this war would be won through innovation rather than tradition. The galaxy began to take notice as reports spread of a new species that had emerged from nowhere to challenge the Veltheran Empire, beings who fought without honor or predictable tactics, who seemed to learn from every encounter and improve their methods with frightening speed, making them either potential allies or the most dangerous enemies any species had ever faced, depending on how first contact proceeded. Colonel Morrison led increasingly bold raids into Veltheran space, his crews growing more confident with each successful mission as they learned to exploit alien weaknesses while avoiding their strengths, striking fast and hard before disappearing into the void, leaving behind destruction and confusion that slowly began to erode Veltheran confidence in their own superiority. 6 months after the destruction of the New Horizons, Humanity had transformed from a peaceful exploration society into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species unified in purpose and driven by cold determination to ensure that no other humans would suffer the fate of those 49 scientists. Their grief and anger forged into weapons more dangerous than any technology, as they prepared to show the Valtheran Empire what happened when someone made the mistake of starting a war with humanity. Commander Sarah Blake piloted her fighter through the quantum void between dimensions, her hands steady on the controls as reality shifted around her ship like liquid glass, the experimental phase drive allowing her to move through space in ways that violated every law of physics the Valtherans understood, making her invisible to their sensors until the moment she chose to strike, when her ship would emerge from nothingness to deliver death before vanishing again into the spaces between spaces. Ghost Squadron consisted of 12 of the best pilots humanity had ever produced, men and women who had volunteered to test technology so dangerous that early prototypes had killed their test pilots by tearing them apart at the molecular level. But the survivors had learned to navigate the quantum realm with skills that bordered on supernatural, allowing them to appear anywhere in Valtheran space without warning, strike with devastating precision, then disappear before enemy forces could respond. Lieutenant Tony Martinez flew wing position beside Sarah, his fighter loaded with weapons that combined human engineering with Valtheran technology in ways that created effects neither species had imagined possible. Energy torpedoes that could punch through alien shields like they were made of paper, plasma cannons that fired bolts hot enough to melt starship hulls, and quantum mines that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them impossible to detect or defend against. The Valtheran patrol fleet moved through space with the confidence of a species that had never faced a real challenge, their ships arranged in perfect formation according to tactical doctrines that had served them well for millennia, but which assumed their enemies would follow similar rules of engagement rather than appearing from impossible angles to deliver attacks that defied every principle of honorable warfare they understood. Sarah emerged from the quantum void directly behind the alien flagship, her weapons already charging as reality solidified around her fighter, the Valtheran commander probably experiencing a moment of complete confusion as his sensors detected a human ship in a position that should have been impossible to reach, before her torpedoes struck his engines and left his vessel crippled and helpless. The rest of Ghost Squadron materialized around the alien formation like vengeful spirits, their fighters appearing from every direction at once as they executed maneuvers that would have been suicide for conventional aircraft, diving through the spaces between alien ships while firing weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics, creating chaos and destruction that left Valtheran crews struggling to understand what was happening to them. Tony Martinez destroyed 3 alien fighters in as many seconds, his plasma cannons cutting through their armor like laser scalpels, while his ship twisted through impossible angles to avoid return fire, the young pilot laughing with grim satisfaction as he watched enemy vessels explode around him, knowing that each Valtheran death brought humanity one step closer to justice for the massacre aboard the New Horizons. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes before the surviving alien ships fled in disorder, their formations broken and their confidence shattered by an attack that had come from nowhere, and ended with the destruction of half their fleet, while the human fighters vanished back into the quantum void without leaving any trace of how they had arrived or where they had gone, making the encounter seem like a nightmare rather than a military engagement. War Prime Zethkar studied the reports from his surviving commanders with growing unease, because human tactics seemed designed by minds that understood warfare as pure chaos, rather than the honorable contest between worthy opponents that had defined Valtheran military doctrine for centuries, making every encounter with these new enemies unpredictable and dangerous in ways his species had never experienced before. Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the success of Ghost Squadron from her command center on Earth, her satisfaction tempered by the knowledge that these victories were only the beginning of a much larger campaign, because the real goal was not to defeat Valtheran patrol fleets but to break their entire civilization, ensuring they could never again threaten human ships or any other peaceful species that had the misfortune to encounter them. Engineer Pete Williams had achieved breakthroughs that transformed human military capabilities almost overnight, his teams working around the clock to produce weapons and defenses that incorporated alien technology, while adding improvements that the original designers had never imagined, creating ships that could match Valtheran firepower while exceeding their speed, maneuverability, and tactical flexibility. Dr. Lisa Hayes discovered disturbing intelligence about Valtheran history through intercepted communications and captured databases, learning that this species had systematically exterminated hundreds of younger civilizations over the millennia, viewing the destruction of entire worlds as their divine right and responsibility, making them not just enemies but genocidal monsters who needed to be stopped before they could kill again. The psychological warfare began with simple messages broadcast on Valtheran communication frequencies, human voices speaking in their language to describe exactly what would happen to every alien who had participated in the massacre of innocent scientists, promises delivered in calm, reasonable tones that somehow made them more terrifying than any threat screamed in anger, because they carried the certainty of people who meant every word they said. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the heavy cruiser, Vengeance, as it led a fleet of 30 human warships into the heart of Valtheran space. Their mission not to conquer territory but to demonstrate that nowhere in the galaxy was safe for the beings who had started this war, their ships equipped with weapons that could destroy planets, and the determination to use them if necessary to protect humanity from future attacks. The Valtheran defense forces that met them fought with courage and skill that would have impressed human observers under different circumstances, but their tactics remained predictable, and their technology had been surpassed by human engineering that improved on alien designs while adding capabilities that no Valtheran scientist had ever considered possible, making the outcome inevitable despite their numerical superiority. Human ships moved through enemy formations like sharks among fish, their quantum drives allowing them to appear and disappear at will, while their weapons delivered destruction with surgical precision, targeting command ships first to break alien coordination, then systematically destroying every vessel that tried to flee, ensuring that word of human capabilities would spread through Valtheran space along with fear. Sarah Blake led Ghost Squadron in strikes against Valtheran supply lines, her fighters appearing inside heavily defended systems to destroy fuel depots, ammunition warehouses, and construction facilities, each attack carefully planned to cause maximum disruption while demonstrating that human forces could strike anywhere they chose without regard for alien defenses or the natural laws that were supposed to govern space travel. The aliens began to realize that they had awakened something beyond their understanding or control, a species that fought with cold determination rather than hot passion, who treated war as a problem to be solved rather than a ritual to be observed, and who seemed capable of learning and adapting faster than any enemy the Valtheran Empire had ever faced, making them more dangerous with each passing day. Tony Martinez became famous throughout human space as footage of his combat victories spread through military networks, the young pilot representing everything that made humanity dangerous to its enemies, the ability to take alien technology and use it better than the beings who had created it, combined with tactical thinking that refused to accept limitations or follow predictable patterns. War Prime Zethkar ordered the mobilization of the entire Valtheran fleet. Every ship and warrior in the Empire called to defend their homeworld against an enemy that seemed to possess capabilities that bordered on magic. But his commanders reported increasing incidents of panic among their crews, soldiers who had never known fear now terrified by an enemy that could appear from nowhere and disappear before they could fight back. Admiral Sullivan approved the next phase of human operations, strikes against Valtheran colonies and industrial worlds designed to cripple their ability to support military operations, while demonstrating that nowhere in their empire was safe from human retaliation. Each attack carefully planned to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing psychological impact on a species that had never experienced the fear their victims had known. The galaxy watched in fascination and terror as two advanced species engaged in warfare that exceeded anything seen in recorded history, with humans demonstrating capabilities that seemed impossible, while Valtherans fought with desperate courage against an enemy that refused to follow any rules they understood, making every battle unpredictable and every human victory a lesson in the dangers of underestimating a species that treated survival as the only rule that mattered. Colonel Jake Morrison received the emergency transmission while his fleet was hunting Valtheran supply convoys in the Outer Rim, the message crackling with static and interference as it traveled across impossible distances, to bring him news that would change everything. His wife's voice barely recognizable through the distortion as she spoke her final words from the doomed colony on New Geneva, telling him she loved him and asking him to remember their daughter's smile before the Transmission cut to silence that felt like death itself. The Valtheran attack on New Geneva had been carefully planned to cause maximum psychological damage to human forces, targeting civilian populations to demonstrate that their empire could strike at defenseless targets if humans continued their aggressive military campaigns. War Prime Zethkar, believing that humans would negotiate for peace once they understood that their families were vulnerable to alien retaliation, not realizing that he had just made the worst mistake in his species' long history. 2.3 million civilians lived on New Geneva, including families of military personnel, research scientists, artists, teachers, and children who had never heard of the Valtheran Empire or understood why aliens might want to hurt them. Their world, one of humanity's most beautiful colonies, with cities built among rolling hills and forests that reminded settlers of Earth's countryside, now burning under alien weapons that turned paradise into hell. Dr. Lisa Hayes watched the footage from New Geneva, with tears streaming down her face, seeing the orbital bombardment that had destroyed entire cities in seconds, the alien landing forces that hunted down survivors with methodical precision, the children's hospitals and schools that had been specifically targeted because Valtherans believed that destroying the young would break human morale. Their actions revealing a level of cruelty that exceeded anything she had imagined possible. Engineer Pete Williams stared at the tactical displays, showing the destruction of the research facility where his parents had been working on agricultural improvements to help feed colony worlds. His hands clenched into fists as he watched alien soldiers execute the scientists one by one, their deaths recorded and broadcast as a warning to other humans about the price of resistance, his grief transforming into cold hatred that would drive him to create weapons beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Kate Sullivan convened an emergency session of the War Council just hours after, receiving confirmation that New Geneva had fallen, her voice steady and controlled as she outlined humanity's response to what could only be described as genocide, the deliberate targeting of civilian populations in violation of every principle of civilized warfare, an act that demanded not just retaliation, but complete elimination of the threat. The authorization code for Protocol Zero had never been used in human history, a response so extreme that it required unanimous approval from Earth's leadership and military command. Designed for enemies who had proven themselves incapable of coexisting with humanity or any other peaceful species, beings who had forfeited their right to exist through actions that crossed every moral boundary. Civilization recognized. Sarah Blake received her new orders while Ghost Squadron was refueling at a hidden base in the asteroid fields, her pilots gathering around the briefing table as she explained their mission to systematically destroy every Valtheran military installation, supply depot, shipyard, and command center in known space, using tactics that would ensure no alien force could escape to threaten human civilians again. Tony Martinez volunteered to lead the most dangerous missions deep into Valtheran space, his fighter equipped with experimental weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them capable of destroying targets that conventional physics said should be invulnerable, his young face hard with determination as he prepared to bring justice to the beings who had murdered innocent children. The human response began with simultaneous strikes across 300 Valtharan systems, quantum-capable ships appearing without warning to deliver destruction that exceeded anything the aliens had experienced in their longest wars, human weapons that had been designed specifically to counter every defensive system in the Valtheran arsenal, making resistance futile and escape impossible. War Prime Zethkar realized too late that he had awakened something beyond his comprehension, receiving reports of total system failures as human forces swept through his empire like a plague, destroying not just military targets but the entire infrastructure that supported Valtheran civilization, power plants, communication networks, manufacturing facilities, and transportation hubs all burning under weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Captain Morrison led the assault on the Valtheran homeworld with a fleet of ships that represented the pinnacle of human engineering, vessels that incorporated every lesson learned from 2 years of warfare against an enemy that had once seemed invincible, their hulls covered in armor that could absorb direct hits from alien superweapons, while their own guns fired energy beams capable of cracking continents. The battle for the Valtheran capital lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete destruction of their planetary defense grid, orbital stations and military bases, human forces demonstrating capabilities that made alien technology look primitive by comparison, quantum torpedoes that could phase through any shield, plasma cannons that fired faster than light, and gravitational weapons that could crush starships like insects. Dr. Hayes coordinated the systematic capture of Veltharan databases and scientific records, her teams working to preserve their knowledge while ensuring that their military technology could never be used against humans or anyone else. The aliens' own research being turned against them as human scientists learned to use their genetic engineering techniques to create biological weapons specifically tailored to Veltharan physiology. Engineer Williams unleashed weapons that violated the fundamental laws of physics, devices that could exist in multiple timelines simultaneously to ensure that destroyed targets remained destroyed across all possible realities, making resurrection or restoration impossible even for beings who might have mastered time travel. His grief for lost family members driving him to create tools of vengeance that exceeded anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Veltharan fleet that had seemed so mighty just 2 years earlier was swept from space in a matter of weeks, their ships destroyed or captured by human forces that moved with coordination and precision, that suggested either supernatural intelligence or technology so advanced that it bordered on magic, while their crews discovered that surrender was not an option humans were prepared to accept. Sarah Blake's fighters penetrated the deepest bunkers and most heavily defended positions on the Veltharan homeworld, their quantum drives allowing them to appear inside supposedly impregnable fortifications to deliver weapons that could sterilize entire city blocks in seconds, ensuring that no alien leader could escape justice for their crimes against humanity and the countless other species they had exterminated. Admiral Sullivan watched the final phases of the campaign from Earth, her satisfaction tempered by the knowledge that complete victory required not just military defeat, but the total dismantling of Veltharan civilization, ensuring they could never again threaten anyone while serving as an example to other species that might consider attacking humanity in the future. Tony Martinez achieved the impossible by single-handedly destroying the Veltharan command center during the final assault. His fighter diving through defensive fire that should have vaporized him instantly, his weapons punching through shields and armor that had protected alien leaders for millennia, his victory ensuring that no one remained alive who had ordered or approved the massacre on New Geneva. War Prime Zethkar died in the ruins of his palace, his final thoughts focused on the realization that his species had encountered something beyond their understanding, beings who fought not for conquest or glory, but for the complete elimination of threats, creatures who could be peaceful explorers or merciless destroyers depending on how they were treated, and who never forgot or forgave those who chose to be their enemies. The Veltharan Empire ceased to exist on a cold Tuesday morning 6 months after the attack on New Geneva, their homeworld silent and their colonies abandoned, their military destroyed and their leaders dead, their entire civilization reduced to scattered refugees who would spend the rest of their lives remembering what happened when someone made the mistake of starting a war with humanity and showing them no mercy in return. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the empty throne room of the former Veltharan capital, his boots echoing on marble floors that had once witnessed the planning of genocides across hundreds of worlds, the massive chamber now serving as a monument to the consequences of underestimating humanity, its silence more powerful than any speech about justice or the price of starting wars with beings who valued peace but understood that sometimes violence was the only language aggressive species could comprehend. 5 years had passed since the New Horizons had been destroyed by aliens who thought humans were just another weak species to be exterminated. But those aliens were gone now, and their empire existed only in history books that served as warnings to other civilizations about the dangers of mistaking human mercy for weakness. While the galaxy had learned that Earth's children could be the gentlest explorers or the most terrible warriors, depending on how they were welcomed among the stars. Dr. Lisa Hayes worked in her new office on the former Veltharan homeworld, serving as humanity's first director of xenocultural integration, her job to help the few surviving aliens adapt to a galaxy where humans now held ultimate authority, not as conquerors seeking slaves but as protectors, ensuring that no species would ever again suffer the fate of those countless civilizations the Veltharans had destroyed over the millennia. The refugee camps housed the last remnants of a once mighty empire, Veltharan families living in simple but comfortable quarters while learning trades and skills that would allow them to contribute to galactic civilization rather than parasitically dominating it. Their children attending schools where they learned human values of cooperation and respect for life alongside mathematics and science, gradually forgetting the warrior culture that had made their species the terror of known space. Engineer Pete Williams had become Earth's chief technology officer, overseeing research facilities that combined human innovation with technologies captured from dozens of alien species, creating capabilities that exceeded anything the galaxy had ever seen, while ensuring that humanity's military advantage would never be lost. His work driven by memories of friends who had died aboard the New Horizons and family members killed on New Geneva. The quantum defense grid protected every human world with weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making any attack on civilian populations impossible while demonstrating to potential enemies that humanity had learned from the Veltheran assault and would never again allow their people to be threatened by beings who mistook compassion for vulnerability, the system serving as both shield and sword for a species that had proven they could use either with devastating effectiveness. Captain Sarah Blake commanded the exploration fleet that was mapping unknown regions of space. Her ships equipped with the most advanced technology in galactic history while crewed by humans who understood that they represented not just Earth but the values of peaceful coexistence that their species had fought to preserve. Her mission to find new life and new civilizations while ensuring that none would suffer the fate that had befallen so many under Veltheran rule. The Galactic Council met for the first time in the former Veltheran capital, representatives from hundreds of species gathering to establish new principles of interstellar law under human guidance. Their discussions focused on preventing future genocides while promoting exploration and cooperation between civilizations that had spent millennia hiding from aggressive empires that viewed weaker species as resources to be exploited or obstacles to be eliminated. Ambassador Tony Martinez addressed the assembled delegates with the wisdom of someone who had seen both the best and worst that intelligent life could offer. His speech outlining humanity's simple philosophy of treating friends with infinite generosity, while showing enemies the consequences of choosing aggression over cooperation. His words carrying weight because everyone present knew what had happened to the last species that had decided to test human resolve. The Core Memorial on New Geneva listed the names of every civilian killed in the Veltheran attack, their sacrifice remembered not as meaningless tragedy, but as the catalyst that had transformed humanity from peaceful explorers into the galaxy's protectors, ensuring that no other world would burn under alien weapons while innocent people died for the crime of existing in territory claimed by beings who viewed murder as their divine right. Species after species sent diplomatic missions to Earth, carrying the same message, their desire to establish friendly relations with humanity, while making clear that they had no aggressive intentions toward human space or any other peaceful civilization, their ambassadors often trembling as they delivered gifts and treaties that acknowledged human authority over galactic affairs, not out of fear but out of respect for beings who had proven they could build or destroy depending on circumstances. Dr. Hayes published her research on Veltheran psychology and culture, her work serving as a guide for identifying potentially genocidal species before they could begin their campaigns of extermination, while her teams developed methods for rehabilitating aggressive civilizations through education and cultural exchange rather than the complete destruction that had been necessary with beings who had refused to change their ways. Despite every opportunity for peace, the terraforming projects brought life to worlds that had been scoured clean by Veltheran weapons, human engineers working with alien scientists to restore ecosystems that had been destroyed centuries ago, their efforts creating new homes for refugee species, while demonstrating that humanity preferred creation to destruction whenever possible, building rather than burning as they expanded their influence across the galaxy. Engineer Williams created the Memorial Fleet, ships designed not for war but for rescue and relief operations, their holds filled with medical supplies, food, and construction equipment rather than weapons, though they remained capable of defending themselves against anyone foolish enough to attack humanitarian missions, their very existence proving that humans could be either saviors or destroyers, depending on the choices made by those they encountered. Admiral Morrison retired from active military service to become the first Director of Galactic Security, his job to monitor potential threats while ensuring that human forces remained ready to respond to any species that might decide to follow the Veltheran example. His office walls decorated with images of the New Horizons crew, whose deaths had started the transformation, of humanity from innocent explorers into the galaxy's ultimate authority. To me, education programs taught alien children about human history and values, showing them how Earth's people had suffered through wars and disasters before learning to work together for the common good. Their lessons emphasizing that strength was best used to protect the weak rather than exploit them, while failure to understand this principle led inevitably to the kind of destruction that had claimed the Velthran Empire. Captain Blake's exploration fleets discovered dozens of new civilizations every year, making first contact with species that had hidden in distant systems to avoid Veltharan attention, their ships arriving with gifts and offers of friendship, rather than weapons and demands for submission, demonstrating that the galaxy's new order was based on cooperation rather than domination, though everyone understood the consequences of choosing aggression. The TU quantum communication network linked every world in human space with instantaneous transmission capabilities that made coordination of relief efforts, scientific research, and defensive operations possible on a galactic scale, while also serving as an early warning system that would alert humanity to any emerging threats long before they could become dangerous, ensuring that never again would peaceful ships be destroyed by aliens who mistook exploration for invasion. War museums on every human world displayed captured Veltharan weapons and armor alongside exhibits explaining why the Empire had been destroyed. Their purpose not to glorify violence but to ensure that future generations understood the price of allowing aggressive species to threaten innocent life, while demonstrating that humanity's transformation into galactic protectors had been necessary rather than chosen for conquest or glory. Admiral Kate Sullivan delivered the final speech at the dedication of the Peace Monument on Earth. Her words carried throughout the galaxy by quantum transmitters that ensured every intelligent species could hear humanity's promise to protect the weak while destroying any who threatened them. Her message, simple and clear, that the choice between friendship and annihilation remained available to every civilization, but that the consequences of choosing wrongly had been permanently established by the fate of those who had started a war and discovered that humanity showed no mercy to enemies who showed none to others.